Welcome once again. This is Pinnacle Professional College, and today we'll be bringing you another session on the pre-scene information for Bazar Company Limited. Now, in our previous sessions, we stopped at page 5 of our analysis, and so we would continue straight away. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Share this video with your friends who might be taking the exam, and it will be very, very useful for them. So let's begin with customer diversity. So first of all, what is customer diversity? It's basically the differences, or the differences that you have in your customer segments, right? So the uniqueness of your customers, how different they are from one another. When we say people are diverse, it means that they come from different backgrounds. They have different, they've lived in different contexts, etc. So customer diversity is basically different customers, different interests, different desires, etc. So Bazar operates in an increasingly diverse community. So that's a huge thing. Bazar operates not in a homogeneous society, but a very diverse community. Not just in terms of staffing. So you would have different individuals that Bazar Company Limited will deal with. So what does this mean? What's the implication of this? If you are dealing with a diverse customer base, it means that you would have to understand customer needs in depth, right? So and treat each customer as unique. And if you are going to segment your customer base, you must make sure that the customers that are within a particular segmentation have similar interests. So that is in relation to a diverse customer base, right? It's very, very important. If you have a diverse customer base, you properly need to ascertain the customer needs, specific customer needs of the several customers you have, or the customer groupings that you have. Now, Bazar prides itself on the highest standards of customer service across the different stores, using the location advantage as its competitive advantage. So that is a key for them, using their location. At the heart of Bazar's service ethic is a commitment to treat all of its customers both fairly and equally, regardless of their race, gender, religion, etc. So because Bazar has a diverse customer base, these customers come from different backgrounds, have different experiences, different beliefs, etc. And so if you as a company are going to succeed in nurturing this customer base, you would have to tailor your services to the needs of the customer base, of the unique customers that you have. However, treating people equally isn't always about treating people the same. It is about understanding that different people have different needs and responding to these needs. You see, I mentioned it here. So tailoring your services to the needs of customers, it's crucial when you have a diverse customer base. I hope you're with me. Recognizing and valuing customer diversity will help Bazar to deliver truly world-class services that are accessible to everyone. It is about fairness and equality, right? So very, very important. You need to identify the needs of your unique customers, right? You can't treat all your customers the same, or you can't adopt a blanket approach to all your customers, because they are diverse, and that you need to respond to their specific needs. You need to respond specifically to the needs of your customers. Now, the Persons with Disability Act 2006, as passed by 4th Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, sets out a number of requirements for companies which Bazar supports and are working to the spirit of the legislation. Bazar is currently building on its existing strengths in looking to meet the needs of all its customers, which include access to stores. Now, so when we look at the SWOT analysis, right? When you look at the SWOT analysis, one of the key strengths or the existing strengths of Bazar Company Limited is accessibility and looking to meet the needs of its customers. So you should note that as a strength. Among other things, the Act provides for rights such as unrestricted access to public places, buildings, free healthcare. Bazar is constantly reviewing the services it delivers and to invite custom comments and suggestions. So that's a huge initiative that Bazar is taking to review its services, invite for feedback, and they go ahead to analyze the feedback that they get. So very, very important. The main thing you need to understand here is about customer diversity. Customer diversity. You need to understand what customer diversity is, right? What customer diversity is, and also you need to understand as a business how to respond to customer diversity, right? So I explained what customer diversity is, right? I explained what customer diversity is. And I also went ahead to explain the implications of it, right? And that if you have, it would mean that if your customer base is diverse, it will mean that you would have different people with different needs. And so you must tailor your services to solve those needs, Very, very important. Now let's move on to the organization's communication system. Very, very key. The organization's communication system. Let's move on to, okay, so in recent years, Bazar has also attempted to increase employee engagement. We've talked extensively about employee engagement, so I wouldn't touch too much on it, mostly through improved communication, both of a written and verbal nature. So Bazar is deploying the different channels that it can use to communicate and to engage employees. Now, what is the benefit of engaged employees? Engaged employees are motivated, they put in the work, and they help you to achieve your goals as a business. Unlike many other large organizations, Bazar has chosen not to introduce a formal communication policy, such as team briefing, preferring to rely on informal channels and face-to-face contact between managers and their staff on an ad hoc basis. This is justified by some senior management because of the nature of the market environment, that is continuous pressure from customers that require immediate attention. So what are we talking about here? So Bazar does not have a formal communication policy. So let's think about that for a moment. Is that helpful? Just imagine you are in a company and you only hear things through informal channels, all right? It creates a lot of confusion because sometimes you would want things communicated formally as an organization, right? So that could have some disadvantages, So a formal communication policy system would be beneficial to Bazar Company Limited to avoid confusion among employees as to what exactly has been communicated. So this is has been justified by some senior management because of the market environment, etc. Accordingly, Bazar management is unwilling to provide extra payment for the purpose of communicating information to staff in addition to their working hours. At the same time, some of their competitors have chosen to implement more formal systems for cascading information. So you see, their competition is deploying formal communication system, but Bazar themselves do not want to, and that's interesting because where in an organization where communication is not sound, is not clear, it creates confusion. Employees do not know exactly what to do. and it goes on, and it affects the business. And so you probably would want some formal communication system. Although many of the managers who were interviewed in the research felt the informal system worked well, and that the staff were adequately informed about company and store developments, a significant proportion of employees were not always kept in the picture. So you see, since they are not deploying a formal communication system, some employees do not know what's going on in the business. And imagine being in a company and not knowing what's going on. So as I read this pre-scene information, one of the things I'll begin to research are formal communication systems and how they work, right? What are the advantages of having a formal communication system? Right? So I would research that. I could give you a few. I could give you a few that you could go think about, right? But you might want to have a few at the back of your mind. So number one advantage of a formal communication is that it helps to maintain a permanent record of the communication, right? When communication is formalized, it helps to maintain a permanent record of that communication. And that really, really helps. That's one key benefit. There are several key benefits, and I'll entreat you to research about it. We see here that most of the employees were not adequately kept in the picture. Indeed, at one of the stores where the general manager was more elusive, a majority regarded the grapevine as a more effective source of communication. So the grapevine, when you hear the word grapevine, so as I read this, I would brush up on my communication systems, at least know the advantages of and disadvantages of formal communication systems, and also know what the grapevine is. So when we say the grapevine is basically an informal method of communication, right? It's an informal method of communication. That's what you need to know about the grapevine. It's basically hearing something through an informal source from another person, or through unofficial or quick conversations, right? Grapevine communication, it's not official, it's not formal, right? And if you have a company where there's no formalized form of communication, it could lead to a huge communication breakdown. And this might be disastrous for Bazar Company Limited. Although there's no formal machinery for regular face-to-face information passing between managers and staff, Bazar is well renowned for the quality and comprehensiveness of its written communication. At each store, there's a system of information board that assumes a key place within the framework of employee relations. So even though Bazar does not do a good job when it comes to the formal machinery of communication, there is what we call a system of information board, which is very, very crucial. It helps Bazar Company Limited to be able to communicate with their employees. That's very, very crucial. So it's a source of written information that helps to communicate with employees. So that's very, very crucial. So as I've mentioned, please brush up on communication methods, formal and informal communication. The grapevine, you need to know what the grapevine is. I've already explained that. Like the rest of competitors, Bazar has developed a range of mechanisms to encourage staff to maintain higher level customer service, much of which are centered around video campaigns and training sessions. For the most part, the videos are shown by a staff trainer, not a line manager, and staff are drawn from different parts of the store. So as we see here, customer care is being emphasized. Now let's move on to, which we've talked about it extensively, about customer care and the need for customer care. So let's move on to information processing. I would like to touch on these things very quickly to give you a bird's eye view of this pre-sale information. So to monitor and track inventory sales activities in the stores, which form on the average 70% of Bazar cost of sales, an integrated POS inventory and management system is employed. So there's some form of tracking of inventory sales in the store, right, using an integrated advanced POS. So some form of automation technology used here. So I'm curious to see how it works. The system automatically polls each store every 24 hours to gather pertinent data regarding the store's inventory level. So the system would poll each store every 24 hours. So yes, that's great, but could this be done in real time, right? Well, by real time, we mean that as soon as an inventory sale is made, the system automatically polls it, right? Information provided on a daily report include total of sales by household and individuals and further breakdown of sales by category, right? So this is a report. Now I would brush up on reporting a bit and see how to prepare reports and do projections going into the exam. This allows management to evaluate performance on a daily basis and implement controls and strategies. So there is some form of, tracking, right? A daily tracking system for inventory sales, and an advanced point of sale system is being used. So there's some form of control or technology that's being used to do this. Now, very, very crucial, what we need to understand here is the efficiency and effectiveness of the point of sale system. Are there any weaknesses in it or flaws in it? What are the controls around the inventory sale process to be ensured that there are no weaknesses in the process? Very, very important. This system is updated continually to add additional functionality to aid management with stores operation. For example, things like personnel scheduling and timekeeping functions have been added. Now let's move on to future developments. Now take note of the pointers I'm mentioning and just brush on them. The company remains very successful, not only in terms of market share and profitability. So this is the future of the company, but also respect to its employee relationships. Bazar has done much to change its traditional image from an autocratic style to a more people-related style. So we talked about leadership style extensively in our previous sessions, and so it's important to go back to those sessions if you haven't watched them. So it's nice that Bazar Company Limited is beginning to evolve, management is beginning to become more approachable, more friendly, all those things are very, very helpful. So nevertheless, there are many tensions perceived between new initiatives and old practices. So even though, Bazar Company Limited is beginning to evolve, there's always a clash between the old and the new. There's always a clash between the old and the new. All right, so this is very, very important. Very, very important. And this is where this model comes to mind, which is called Lewin's change management model. Anytime you are trying to change a culture, or change a system or change a process, one of the key models that we use is called the Lewin change management model, the Lewin change management model. And I'll just go briefly through that model. There are 3 stages in that model. There's called unfreezing, that's called movement, and refreezing. So 3 key stages in this model. Because Bazar Company Limited has gone through some form of changes, it might be good to look at this model. So there's unfreeze, there's movement or change, and there's refreeze. So in the unfreezing process, right, we look at what needs to change. In this case, it's the autocratic management style that needs to change. It certainly needs to change. So here you begin the process of change and then freeze change. Then you move on to the change or movement stage. It's where you empower people, involve people in the process to be able to believe in the change and undertake it. Then you also have refreeze. The refreeze process is where you anchor the changes into the culture and develop ways to sustain the change and celebrate any successes that may come along the way. Very, very crucial. Very, very crucial. So please know that model, the Lewin's change management model. Please take note of it. Take note of it. So there have been tensions between the new initiatives and old practices. There remains a strong degree of centralized control, which we've talked about, which is coupled with the threat of constant surveillance. Constant surveillance can be demotivating for employees. When it's excessive, right, it can be demotivating. You know, there are other practices that could be reformed. For example, there are doubts about the effectiveness of communications, which we talked about. That's a potential problem. The Bazar Company Limited needs some form of formalized communication system. While the ethos of customer care is strongly expressed by managers, the actual management of customer relationship is to some degree vague, right? So this company keeps on pushing customer care, but how to manage customers, it's actually vague. And the management of customer relationship is sometimes vague. Now let's see why. One might argue that the company's traditional planned selling approach is somewhat at odds with the increasingly sophisticated techniques of its major competitors. Now, again, when I see planned selling, I would quickly note that down and check what it means. What is planned selling? What is planned selling? Now, if you look at what planned selling means, right? Planned selling means, it simply means an approach, a traditional approach of selling, which is not sophisticated, and it's more traditional. It's more traditional. But let's go into the paragraph a little bit. One might argue that the company's traditional approach, right? So a traditional approach is basically planned selling. It's traditional in nature. It's somewhat at odds with what the competitors are doing. It is therefore making some tentative efforts to catch up. For instance, in the light of other retailers' development loyalty care system, Bazar has invested in an independently owned loyalty card, right? So a company that focuses on customer service, it needs to turn its eye towards customer nurturing, customer relationship, and customer loyalty. Because it's not just about winning customers, but it's about retaining them. So Bazar is trying to make some efforts to develop a loyalty care system which offers loyalty bonuses for the customers, which is very, very crucial. Very, very crucial. Now, Bazar has invested heavily in the development of this card. They are hoping that this advanced loyalty card can be transformed into a smart card system, perhaps combined with credit card in the future, providing even more information on customers' behavior when the Ghana government digitization program is completed. All right, so this loyalty card system is being developed and is being worked on in the hopes that it can become some form of powerful tool in the hands of customers, especially when the digitization program is completed by the government. Now, the pre-scene information goes on and on to talk about the loyalty system and how it works, which is quite extensive in that sense. So one advantage that Bazar Loyalty Card has over their rivals is its link with national charities. So there's a whole national charity, there's a whole social responsibility side to this loyalty card. So immediately, my mind goes to corporate social responsibility. And what is corporate social responsibility? Or what people have called CSR. So corporate social responsibility is quite simple, right? It's basically contributing to societal goals of philanthropic and charitable activities. So it's basically companies involving themselves in giving back to society. Giving back to society. So this is a huge thing, and what CSR or corporate social responsibility could do for Bazar Company Limited is to build its image, build its reputation as a company that cares about its society. Right, so that's very, very important. So I would look into corporate social responsibility. Finally, and most significantly, the company is considering its operation by purchasing 20 stores located along the Middle Savannah region of Ghana, currently owned by Little B, a struggling regional supermarket. So again, they are purchasing 20 stores. So when you think about, okay, they are purchasing 20 stores, you need to think about it in different respects. So what are the implications, right? Are they going to use a loan or their cash to buy these stores, right? Are they going to, if they are not going to buy, are they going to rent these stores? And what will be the impact on their cash? Or if they are using loans, again, what will be the impact on their cash reserves? Very, very crucial question, right? And in the acquisition of stores, it comes with a lot of maintenance. Are they considering maintenance? What is the potential upside from purchasing these stores? How much customers are they looking to acquire and the potential revenue? So all of these things must come into consideration. So this represents a move out of Bazar traditional heartland and represents an ambitious and risky move. In an assessment to the board, the Director of Finance and Operations advised that the acquisition of those 20 stores should be thought of like an investment and should be appraised using appropriate methods when data is available. So when you see something like this in a pre-scene information, I would quickly go to my investment appraisal notes and look at the different ways to appraise investment. There are several ways to appraise investment, but let me touch on a few for you. So quickly brush up on your investment appraisal. So different investment appraisal techniques. Number one is payback. Number two is accounting rate of return. Number three is NPV, which is net present value. Number four is internal rate of return, which is IRR. These are all ways to appraise investment. So please brush on these things and make sure you understand them properly. Now, She also emphasized that the high-risk nature of the strategy should be reflected in any appraisal of the investment, with a clear consultant term of reference highlighting the specific deliverables and expectations. While the stores would be rebranded, the board's decision will be influenced by the financial position of the store, and so it has contracted a consultant to support the board with the necessary acquisition of information. So before going to make this investment, the investment has to be appraised. It has to be financials to show how much it's going to cost, the impact on Bazar Company Limited, and whether it's even worth it for the company to pursue this ambition. Now let's move on into the financials. Right? So you look at 2020. 2020 is on the far right side. You look at 2020 to 2021. Look at the turnover. The turnover has only increased by very, very little. Very, very little. Right? Probably it's a less than 5% increase, because if you look at 666 million to 670 million, that's only a jump of about 3 million. So that's a slight increase, I would say, right? Now let's look at the cost of sales. The cost of sales seems to be increasing at quite a similar rate. So it's increased by about 3 million as well, about 3 million as well, right? So what does this mean? What does this mean? First of all, if I'm looking at these financials, one of the things I would do is I would calculate cost of sales as a percentage of turnover. Cost of sales as a percentage of turnover. So for example, if I pick 2020, what was the cost of sales? It was 466,339. I'll divide that by 666198. That's 70%, right? Now let's see if the cost of sales as a percentage of turnover increased in 2021. That's one of the key things I'll be looking out for. So 469 in 2021, that's the cost of sales. 469,280 divided by 670,400. That's also 70%. So it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. Now let's move on to operating expenses. Now, when you look at operating expenses, that's where you see a huge jump in operating expenses now. And that's quite interesting, isn't it? That's a huge jump in operating expenses. So what is contributing to that? I would want to find out what exactly is contributing to the huge jump in operating expenses. Is it in relation to the stores or maintenance of the stores? What exactly? Or is it rent, or I do not know exactly what it is, but I would keep an eye on it. Why are expenses increasing? Then you have interest payable. That's also is their finance costs, and that also increased as well. Very, very important. Very, very important. Upon all this, you can see that there's only a slight increase in profits. A slight increase in profits. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen in 2022. Now, it's important to read these financials properly. If you look at profit before taxation, you would realize that profit before taxation declined, mainly due to operating expenses and interest payable. That's causing the decline in profit before taxation. And then you also have profit after taxation also declining. So this is due mainly to operating expenses, interest payable. These are the main causes that's driving profits down. And it looks like because profits are down, dividend payout was down. So dividend payout declined from 18,500 to 12,000. Right, this is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. So first of all, I'll be asking myself questions, right? Why is operating expenses increasing? That's what I want to find out. Why is interest payable also increasing? And are there ways we can reduce them? In terms of cost of sales as well, I would want to look at the cost of sales breakdown and see exactly what is contributing to that and see if there are any efficiencies in that regard. Now let's move on to the balance sheet. Let's move on to the balance sheet. In the balance sheet, you would realize that Bazar balance tangible assets has increased. Their fixed assets have increased. That's quite interesting, right? Their fixed assets have increased. So there have been some investment into capital expenditure here. They have increased, right? And then if you look at inventory, they have huge supply of inventory, so about 40 million Ghana cedis. I'm wondering why they have a huge supply of inventory. That's because it's probably a retail store, and there's the need to constantly furnish the store with inventory. There are also trade debtors, so we'd want to know why trade debtors have increased, and also it seems that the cash reserves has also increased. So that's a good thing. They have a huge cash reserve. So as I'm going through these things, I'm analyzing and scanning the financial statements. One of the things that you need to be aware of are financial ratios. When I see a financial statement, I'll try and brush up on my financial ratios. It's very, very important. Now, if you move on to the liability side of things, I think there are trade creditors. Trade creditors increased. Dividends decreased, as we already mentioned. Bazar also has an overdraft. They have an overdraft. Very, very important. Very, very important. Now, there's a bank loan as well. There's a bank loan. A bank loan that's repayable 2026 of about, I think, the 70 million. But it seems like Bazar Company Limited has a huge cash reserve, and so that's a good thing. But overall, what I would say, my impressions on the financial statement is profits are declining, right? Which we see here. The profits are declining. So see the profit decline from 64 million to 62 million, mainly due to an increase in operating expenses and interest payable. So Bazar Company Limited seems to be taking on some form of loans, and maybe that's contributing to their interest payable, their finance costs. There's also investment in tangible assets. You see a huge increase in tangible assets from 2020 to 2021, and things like that. So inventory costs might be increasing, right? And that's probably the reason why inventory balance has increased, or possibly inflation as well. So all these things are things I would assess, but I would definitely have a grasp on my financial ratios. Very, very important. Financial ratios. So let me mention a few for you, right? So when we talk about financial ratios, there are several financial ratios, several of them. Now, the liquidity ratios, there are turnover ratios, there are profitability ratios, there are business risk ratios, etc. So please brush on them. You have the current ratio, quick ratio, inventory turnover ratio. That's one of the key things I'll calculate here, inventory turnover. In relation to the inventory, we have receivable turnover, we have asset turnover, we have interest coverage ratio, we have, we have debt to equity ratio, all those things. Please try and calculate those ratios and have them at your back pocket, and it will be very, very beneficial for you. So thank you very much. I wish you the very best in your exam and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.